Well, hello, and here we are in conversation with some wonderful-looking women who are CAPC and CPNP project staff from around Ontario. I'm really delighted to be spending some time in conversation with them this afternoon as we celebrate service of our staff. And what I'm going to do is invite everybody to introduce themselves, and we'll start our conversation. So could I start with Julie?
Sure.
Hello, Julie.
Hi, thanks, Sydney. Yes, my name is Julie Burton, and I'm the manager of the prevention and early intervention programs at Sick Kids Center for Community Mental Health. And we have had the CAPC and CPNP funding since 1994. And I have been there from the beginning as the manager of that project. And then, of course, over the years, became the manager of all of our prevention programs. But I am still very well connected to the running and the workings of our project. We are in Toronto, working in the northern part of Toronto in the Jane Finch community. We work in 7 community neighborhoods doing prenatal programs and parenting groups.
Wonderful. And how long have you been working for CAPC and or CPNP?
And yeah, I was going to say, I didn't do the math, but it was 1994, April. So I think that's 27 years, 28 years.
I will trust you. I'm not good at the math, especially on demand in front of a camera. So it was 27 you're figuring?
27, I think it is. Yeah, maybe 28. Is it this year? 28 this year, I think. Yeah.
Fabulous. Well, so great to have you here, Julie, and I look forward to us talking more about what it is that keeps you here. But first, we'd like to get an introduction from Joanne. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, I'm Joanne Morin, and I work with Connect Well Connections. That's our new agency. I think Lee explained it a little bit. I started with CAPC. We are a CAPC CPNP project. So I started doing home visiting with CAPC, and I did that for close to 18 years. And now I do Good Food for a Healthy Baby, which is our CPNP program. And I've been with Connections for 25 years. It'll be 25 years in April. April 1st.
Well, that's quite a celebration coming up.
Yes, it is.
25 years. Wonderful. Yep. And I'm so glad you joined us here this afternoon for our chat. So great to have you here, Joanne.
Thank
you. Jennifer.
Yes, hi, my name is Jennifer Sells, and I'm a Director of Service at Keystone Child, Youth and Family Services. And we're in Owen Sound in the Grey and Bruce County area. I've been with CAPC, CPNP, we have both, since 1995. I believe we received funding in 1994, but I started in 1995 with the projects and have been with them ever since. Right. And yeah.
And that would be, what do you figure the math is on that?
Well, I'm thinking about 26 years.
Yeah, yeah, that is really awesome. And I look forward to hearing, what it is that has kept you around so long. That's fabulous. So let's get an introduction from Lee here, our friend Lee. Hi, Lee.
Hi. Yeah, my name is Lee Gibson, and I work for Connections, and I have since March 24th, 1997. So it'll be 25 years next month. And I know that Connections received their CAPC funding in 1993. And our project number indicated that we were the first one in Ontario to actually receive the funding. And then when CPNP came around, we secured that funding in 1995 and started programming, I believe, in 1996. But I wasn't there till 1997. And so we're situated in Carleton Place, but we have our CAPC services, Lanark County, which has multiple communities in there. And then our CPNP also serves Lanark County and Leeds and Grenville counties as well.
Oh, awesome. And Lee, I think it's fair to mention that you and I were chatting couple of months ago before Christmas, and you were just sharing how you had this 25-year anniversary coming up. And really, that was the inspiration for, because it just sort of sparked in both of us. We were thinking about how many folks we know have shown such long-term commitment. And, my first thought was, how do we celebrate Lee? And then how do we celebrate so many long-term staff? So that's kind of the spark of what led us here to this conversation and to this, finding ways to hold space and celebrate all this wonderful work. So I guess this is the opportunity then to open the floor to your reflections on what is it, what do you think it is for you, and then do you have any thoughts on more broadly what it is that keeps people in such long-term commitment to CAPC or CPNP? So who would like to start with their thoughts on that?
I'll start.
Awesome.
I think CAPC CPNP programming is, I really believe in it. I think it makes a difference for families in the communities that we serve. And you see successes, you see families being able to be together that might not have been able to stay together under other circumstances.
Right.
And these kind of programs fill gaps that exist because of, societal perceptions, I guess, of people too. So we do serve the most vulnerable, and I think they deserve support.
So it sounds like you really have a belief in the work that happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Wonderful.
The staff have to be kind of amazing to be able to think outside the box and be resourceful and be active listeners and be able to connect. And I feel that the staff that are hired, that one of the reasons they are able to, that they stay is because they are so good at what they do.
Okay.
Multi-talented.
Right. So the good work that is done, and then also the skills of the people themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank
It's
you.
not just a job. I think it's a commitment.
Okay. It's sort of right. Yeah. That ups the stakes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go next. Mine would be just similar to that, but I value prevention work and working in a children's treatment center for mental health. You see the families coming in for treatment and knowing what we can do in prevention, so that I always say to my colleagues, managers in treatment, that I'm trying to put you out of business. And wouldn't that be great one day? But we are making a difference, and then more particularly, our project was built on hiring what we call community parents. So we hired parents from the community that represent the families that we serve, and so we have a group of community parents that have worked. Some of them have continued to work with us for over 20 years, and some have gone on to getting other education and are working in early on centers with their EC or different positions in the community, and even in higher positions. The community parent role, though, really does. They speak the languages of the families we serve. So we have 10 languages that the staff speak, and the cultures that they represent, the cultures that they're living in those communities, in those neighborhoods, and they're able to connect the families to programs that they wouldn't normally get to. They wouldn't, first of all, understand they're there. They don't understand, they're not, it's not something they're used to going to. They just don't understand the need for a parent group. And then once they get there, and then the follow-up, the phone call, the maybe walking into the group the next week, all those extra touches and supports make the success of keeping them coming to the groups and getting the support that they need, and then getting them referred on to other services if they're needed. it's remarkable. And I just think this funding is so unique, and it's given us that opportunity to be unique and really reach the needed families of today, and especially during this pandemic.
Mm-hmm. So you're really speaking, as you say, to that community-based strength of the programming, and so you're seeing that contributes to the long-term longevity of CAPC staff.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Julie. Jennifer. Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Actually, one of the things that I was struck by is what people have just been saying about how long staff have stayed with the programs. Mm-hmm. And that has certainly been the case with our organization as well. We've had staff that have been with us for, many of them over 20 years. But in addition to that, we have something called Cradling Home Visiting Program, which is overseen by 2 nurses, but we have, when it's operating, about 40 volunteers. And these are women from the community who are trained by the nurses in home visiting, who go in and visit the families once a week for a few hours to give the mom a bit of a break or the parent a break. And it's amazing how many of the volunteers we've had. Some of them we've had for 25 years. Many have been at least 15 or 20 years with this program. This love of babies and supporting new parents is a passion for them as well. Mm-hmm. And if we were to pay for the staff, for the volunteers, it would take us 5 full-time staff to do what these volunteers do. So I just thought, just in terms of longevity, volunteers, parents, it's amazing the sustainability of the program.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say contributes to your, your long-term commitment to the role? It sounds like you're inspired by the volunteers, for sure.
I'm inspired by the volunteers. I'm inspired by the staff, and by the families. Just seeing what they're able to manage in very difficult situations and circumstances, and the growth that they're able to see in themselves and in their children. And it's just, I think, doing good work and knowing that you're contributing to good work.
Yeah, very powerful, powerful motivator.
It is.
Yeah, and a sustainer, a motivator and a sustainer, because that's sort of 2 different things. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. And Joanne, how about you? What keeps you, coming back year after year in the work that you do?
Well, when I first, I always keep this in the back of my mind, I was interviewed by 5 people. And when I left the interview, I used to work in an office, and I really didn't like it. I wanted to be with people. I wanted to make a difference. Mm-hmm. So when I left my interview, I said, I think you should hire me because this is my job. And I'm still here after 25 years. So I guess this was really my calling. So I'm still here. What keeps me here is the families that I serve. I learn just as much from them as I teach them. Their courage, what they, sometimes I wonder, like I'll sit and I'll say, like, oh my God, if I was in their shoes, I'd be a total basket case. How could they be functioning with having all of this stress? So like, it just amazes me. We say that we work with vulnerable population, but they are so resilient. We learn so much from them. And I just have so much respect for them. And it makes me want to do more for them. Yeah. So I love what I do.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very inspiring. Mm-hmm. Does anybody have anything they want to add? Any other thoughts that come up when you think of, what keeps you coming back and continuing this work. And perhaps I'll invite you to think, I was thinking of maybe like, if you could think of one word or a phrase that maybe describes, that is kind of maybe a metaphor for your commitment, or describes what keeps you coming back. Would that be an interesting exercise? I didn't kind of throwing this at you without preparation, so no worries if nothing comes to mind, but let's see, is there anything, if you were to kind of just have one word or phrase to sum up?
It's hard to think of just one word or phrase, really.
Yeah. Tricky one.
It is, yeah.
We can always cut that part out.
I don't think any of us are in it for the money, really. No, not really a very good way to earn a lot of money, but so the payoff is definitely the successes with the families, and knowing that you're making a difference in people's lives, you know.
That's very much what I'm hearing from all of you, that impact, you know, what you're seeing in terms of, you know, growth and resiliency in the families, and then also what you're learning yourself, and you know, how you're inspired from the work that is happening. Yeah. Well,
and yes. I think in this pandemic too, we're really seeing how some of our systems, like our healthcare, our education systems, are broken. So we're really seeing the impact, and then we're really seeing how the families are, especially with school-age kids, how they are struggling, but also coping, or trying to cope, so that their kids get the best that they can, they can provide for them, right? So yeah, we're really seeing that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done, but it has to be done also by higher up. It's not just from the front line. It has to come from the higher up too.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. How about this? What would you say to somebody just starting out? Do you have any words of wisdom or insight? Starting out, just a new staff person, CAPC, Cpnp. Yeah.
I do. Good questions.
Well, again, I know I didn't prepare you with these questions, so, you know, don't feel like you have to have an answer, but I'm just curious.
Open mind.
Have an open mind. Yeah.
You don't have all the answers, and you never will.
Don't feel like you have to have all the answers, because we don't have them, right?
No.
Yeah.
No.
I always tell my people to, if somebody comes in and tells you that they have the answer to your life, run.
Right.
Because we don't. It's your life. We're here to help you.
Yeah.
We're here to give you information. We're here to support you, but we're not here to tell you what to do.
Right. Yeah. Good advice.
Yeah. Just going back on the pandemic, I have to say that, you know, on the magical day of March 16th or 19th, whatever day, I try not to remember what day it was, and we sent all our staff home and said, you know, you got to work from home, and many of our staff working from home. What did that mean? They worked in the community. They didn't have computers. They didn't have laptops themselves.
Right.
And so we spent, you know, the first little while just trying to get iPads, and, you know, I stood at a Best Buy social distancing and waiting in line with a million other people trying to buy iPads at my local store, and then having to deliver them to my staff's home and making sure they could get hooked up, and then, you know, if they had a family member. So just from that to then getting families online, and the same thing, and getting them technology, and, you know, you know, that all improved, and there were lots of organizations and supports, so we were able to do that. And And then now, 2 years, and we've just told our staff we're going to be going back into the office and back into the community again this next week. And they're so excited. Of course, they hate working from home, and they can't wait to get out and safely. But I just think they were still able to figure out unique ways to connect with families. Our doors were closed, but now some of them showed up at food banks, and some of them live in the buildings that families live in, and it was just. And then they taught families how to, get on a Zoom, and they didn't even know how, but they figured it out, and they figured it out. And so yeah, back to you. What's your one word? I just think supportive. Everybody, and if I was to tell somebody what their job is, it's about support, and then linking and referring them to supports that will further help them. So
yeah, I agree. And Julie, I think another celebration that we're invited to have is how we've how projects have navigated this pandemic and continued to serve communities. Just amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Yes.
I think it just gives me one word that I think of with CAPC and CPNP projects and staff and families is adaptability. I think that what Julie was just talking about is certainly mirrored in the experiences that my staff have had in terms of Zoom and Facebook and texting and phoning and all the different ways that they provided support. And in the process of doing that, we discovered some very interesting things. Our CPNP Healthy Beginnings program grew hugely, and we were finding a lot of young women with social anxiety were hooking into the programs in ways that they hadn't before. I mean, we always would get people that had social anxiety in our groups, but they were a minority, and it was hard to get them there. Once they were there, as other people have said, they were hooked in, but getting them there was not always easy. And now with the ability to do Zoom groups, and they're even doing cooking, we're doing curbside drop-offs of food, and they're all cooking together on Zoom. Right. Julie, I guess you're doing that too. I thought, wow, I can't believe that's happening. But we really found ways of adapting to pandemics, to poverty, to whatever is going on. That is, I think, one of the strengths of CAPC and CPNP.
And perhaps I might venture, like the pandemic is, of course, a dramatic example of that. But I would guess that with these projects being so community-based and being committed to responding to the community's need, that's a skill and a need that, we've been responding to since the beginning. And perhaps for some folks, that ability to tap into that creative, engagement and problem solving is something that might support somebody staying around a little bit long-term, right? Because you never quite know what the day is going to bring you. You have to, have an ability to think on your feet and have creative solutions for connections. So I would imagine, you don't really get bored, right? There's always something new to think about, and I would think that would help people stay around a little longer, perhaps, than in other. So that, along with, what I hear from you about, the motivation or the inspiration of seeing families, grow and the inspiration that provides, that kind of makes a recipe for, I think, some long-term staff, which obviously we're seeing with so many folks around 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years, like all of you. So, so unless are there any final thoughts or comments anybody wants to make before we sign off?
Yeah, so just, not to give you a plug, Sydney, but I'm going to, even Sydney, from the very beginning of CAPC and CPNP, I was on one of the initial, let's have some kind of network, and we pulled, people from each zone, and we created what we now call the network. And And I think in my early days, I learned so much from so many other projects. And then, you know, fast forward, we had lovely conferences where we exchanged information and learned from each other. And, you know, I'm seeing people, Jennifer and Lee, who I, you know, haven't seen in years because we haven't been in person at things, but you know, we were able to create, you know, relationships and you know, knowing that you could just call somebody and say, hey, how do you do this, or what do you do that? And then when the pandemic hit, I know my staff learned a great deal from you, Sydney, with regards to computer technology and Zoom and what to do and ways to navigate things. And they jumped on a lot of the workshops and found it so helpful. And so I, as a zone, I think we are so strong and in sharing best practices and compared to, you know, I have other funding that doesn't have that strength, and I think that's a real value of CAPC and Cpnp.
That's great to hear. I'm so glad. Thank you, Julie. Jennifer?
Well, one other plug that I just wanted to put in for just the concept behind CAPC and Cpnp and the thinking and the support from the Public Health Agency of Canada over the years to allow us to work with the communities, like to expect that we are going to have our ear to the ground in terms of what needs to happen and trying to plug holes like FASD diagnostic services that many of us have been maybe working on for a couple of decades at least, maybe almost 3. And, you know, just seeing opportunities when the province has fundings in different area that we're able to work with it. And, you know, Julie was mentioning, you know, early on, and just being able to link into those other provincial initiatives. So anchoring this federal funding in provinces and in the communities in a specific way, I think is a brilliant strategy for actually having some real outcomes that are very powerful. I know we've seen low birth weight rates be affected in our area. We saw them in our programs. We weren't having low birth weight babies with parents that have very high risks and previous low birth weight babies before they were in the program. So I just really feel that the ability that this funding allows for people to see needs, meet needs in creative ways, and really do community development is a huge strength of this program.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Thank you, Jennifer.
And I'd also like to say, I mean, the unique thing about CAPC and Cpnp is that they were, when they were created, each one is sort of unique in that they were tailored to the communities that they're serving. And that is something that you don't see otherwise. Everyone else is sort of fitting into a box, and we're sort of like this thing that moves in and out of a box, right? And that makes a huge difference because there's so much flexibility. And if you need to change to serve your community better, you can alter your programming to serve the community better. So it is really wonderful.
You know, when this funding, I was working for another community organization back 28 years ago, and when this funding was announced, and I worked with the team of different community partners to apply for it. And then I decided I might apply for this position, but it's only for 4 years of funding. And I'm like, should I be leaving a full-time job to go to this 4 years? But I just thought it sounded like it was going to do such great work. And so I, of course, applied and took the job, but kept thinking in my mind, oh, we're only doing this for 4 years. Then what happens? Like, oh, that's too bad. And then I look, here we are 28 years later, and I'm so thankful it hasn't ended. And there were many times we thought it was going to end, and it didn't. And now I just can't imagine if they'd ever stop this. But
yeah, for sure. For sure. And there you go, Joanne. I had muted you there. So
just to expand on what Lee was saying about, you know, like you tailor your program to the community, but it's not just to the community, it's also to the family. So it's like family first, then how do you link them to the community? Then it's how do you get them to take advantage of everything that is in the community. So, you know, like it's that gradual step from, you know, like first me, then the community, then how else can I develop myself? So like, that's how I see my role in the families that I work with. So it's look at them first, how they link to the community and so on. Mm-hmm. And then when you do see them like in jobs, or you see them going to college, like I had a couple that went to college or they went to university, like you feel like a proud parent, you know, like it's just like, oh my God, my baby's gone to university, you know, right. Like it's that rewarding that you get from seeing their growth and, you know, like their ambitions. And so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a lot of frustration too. It's not all rose.
For sure.
There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of hand-holding to get them there. And that's what makes it so much more rewarding.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The blood, sweat, and tears, and joy, and celebration. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, do you want to say something?
Reflecting on what Julie said about getting together for the conferences and stuff. When we used to get together in person, it turned out to be such a great opportunity for networking and being able to share best practices and stuff like that. So I think the work that you've done, Sydney, is sort of help try to bring it back, but in a virtual aspect instead of the in-person. But I had missed the in-person for sure, and I felt like we sort of, for a while, were sort of silent, but now we're getting our voices back. It's nice.
It's awesome. So great to hear. I am continue to be, in awe and in admiration of you all. And I want to thank, the four of you for taking time from, I know you're busy, Friday to come and be in community together for a bit and reflect on and then celebrate the length of service. And I can't help but notice that, of course, none of you really spent a lot of time talking about how awesome you are. It was more just about how awesome the project is and the families, and which is, I think, again, another common characteristic that I often see in CAPC and CPNP staff, right? Not in it for the personal glory, but in it for the families and communities. But your own commitment and your insight and your dedication is also very evident. And I'd like to just take a moment to celebrate that in you four and in everybody who might be watching. So thank you again. This has been a real delight and lots of fun. And hopefully we can find more opportunities to come together and celebrate. So thank you. I think I'll stop the recording now unless there's anything else anybody wanted to say. Okay. And thanks for watching, for those of you who have watched. And again, hopefully our paths will cross soon.